Hello everyone and welcome to English Manisa. Today we are exploring the poem Another Woman. The poem explains how a woman starts her day with daily household chores. Her work has no limitation but perfection is always expected. And she makes sure to select the best vegetables from the market and her purchasing should be within budget. So Another Woman is a poem about social evil and it narrates a personal saga of a victim lady. In simple and sympathetic language, the poem details the inhuman treatment of society on women. Specifically, it deals with the evil of dowry. So, the title Another Woman reflects the idea that the struggle and suffering which is depicting in the poem are not unique to one individual, but are experienced by many women in similar situations. Before moving further, let us know about the poetess Imtiaz Dharker. She is a poet, artist, and documentary filmmaker. She is awarded many prizes at the national and international levels. She is a renowned poet as well as filmmaker. Her poetry brings together several themes and issues of contemporary themes like exile, home freedom, displacement, and communal tension and the politics of gender. Here in these work, poet deals with the various problems of women, but her focus is on injustice, oppression, and violence they are subjected to. Now, if we talk about the background and introduction to Another Woman, so the poem was published in 1989 as a part of Imtiaz Dharker's collection Parda and Other Poems. The poem consists of four stanzas and it doesn't have any strict rhyme scheme. The poem is reflective and highlighting the harsh realities and emotional struggles faced by the women. In this poem, we have key themes that include gender inequality, dowry abuse, lack of women's rights, and the commodification of women. I told you we have four stanzas in this poem, so let's start with the first stanza's explanation. So these lines describe the daily life of a woman from a lower middle class Indian family. Like she went to the market and bought green methi, but she also saw a white radish there, which she wanted. Then she imagined how good it would taste but decided not to buy it because it was too expensive. Then she saved the leftover money by tying it into her sari. Then, when she got home, her mother in law was upset with her. The women quietly started preparing the methi leaves, even though her hands got stained with the juice. While cooking over the stove, she had to keep facing the dark looks of her mother in law, and she tried to shield her face from the heat of the stove. Let's start the second stanza. So, in this stanza, the poem reveals the daily torment faced by the women from both her mother in law and husband. That means the taunts and jobs of mother in law have become an everyday affair of her life. The mother in law accuses her for spending too much money wastefully. Her mother in law keeps cursing her parents as well. She said that they have sent their daughter to darken the lives of others. Now, here the woman suffers not only at the hands of her mother in law but also at the hands of her husband. While the mother in law keeps abusing her every day, the husband remains indifferent to her sad state. And she keeps sitting on her heels with her knees bent close to her body near the stove when her husband enters the house from his work. She doesn't even look at his face or raise her head because she has no hope for him. She bends her back even more and keeps crouching as usual because her husband was unresponsive to her plight. Despite her hard work and enduring abuse, she is denied basic respect and the freedom to voice her own feelings, that illustrating the severe lack of support and empathy in her household. Now, here in the third stanza, the poet uses strong images to show the women's suffering. Here she describes how the woman watches the flame from the stove, which seems to reflect her own pain and suffering, and the flame represents her life, which has been darkened and harmed by her difficult circumstances. So here these lines describe her constant exposure to harsh condition and her struggle with poverty. Like here she is saying this was the house she had been sent to. That means the woman here she is reflecting on the fact that she has ended up in this difficult situation, which she did not choose but was forced into. Here in these two lines, she also acknowledges the man, he means her husband, whom she is married to and is now stuck with. Means here she realizes that the life of hardship was her destiny from the start. So, in this way, the poet projects the reality of Indian women. Now, let's see the explanation to this last stanza. So, when the kerosene was thrown, just a moment of surprise, a brilliant spark. That means when the kerosene is thrown, it creates a sudden burst of fire, symbolizing the women's desperate situation. It was the only choice that she had ever known. That means here the woman realizes that her fate was always going to be this way, and she feels trapped in her suffering. Another torch blazing in the dark, another woman. We shield our faces from the heat. Now, here in these lines, the poet suggests that society ignores or avoids seeing the harsh realities faced by the women like her. So, another woman by Imtiaz Dharker gives expression to many such gender issues. According to her, many Indian brides either burn themselves or are burned in the name of dowry. Estimation shows that 80% of the bank loans availed by the poor in India are to meet the wedding cost and dowry demands. The poem highlights the lack of women's right, means the woman in the poem does not even have the right to speak to her husband. She has no space of her own, and she has to spend her time sitting in the kitchen in front of the heat and fumes. And it's shame that even in the 21st century, a woman is just a commodity to be bought and sold in the marriage market and ill-treated at home. So, another woman by Imtiaz Dharker reveals the harsh realities many women face in traditional Indian families, where they endure constant criticism, harsh treatment, and unrealistic expectations. And the poem highlights how strained relationships, such as the harshness of the mother in law and the indifference of the husband, that create a lack of love, respect, and support, leaving the women feeling trapped and voiceless. It brings attention to serious issues like dowry, domestic abuse, and the absence of women's rights. That reminds us that society often ignores these injustices. And the poem serves as a call for greater kindness, respect, and change in how women are treated in families and society. So this is all for today's video, the poem Another Woman by Imtiaz Dharker. I hope it would be helpful for you. Stay tuned for more videos and thanks for watching.